Curtis B. Flemming Sr., Senior Pastor, Bay Community Fellowship. Curtis B. Flemming is the Senior Pastor of Bay Community Fellowship and Woodland Community Church and overseer of the Gateway Mandarin Church Plant Project. He currently serves as the chairman of the Safety and Services Oversight Commission for the City of Oakland, School Site Committee Chair of Prescott Elementary School, Chairman of Dignity Housing West, Incorporated, Oakland, California, Treasurer of the Baptist Ministers Union of Oakland and Vicinity, and Treasurer of the Fresh Life Foundation, an organization aimed at making better the health, well-being, and economic advancement in the West Oakland area. Additionally, he still makes time for prison ministry, street outreach, discipleship, and evangelism. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Pastor Curtis B. Flemming Sr.
So just shortly, I need to speak from a pastoral perspective. It's a couple of things. I have a couple of slides, and I'll go over them, but my talk can be found in Matthew, the 18th chapter, in its totality. And this is your homework to read it. I'm here speaking as a pastor that serves a predominantly African-American church, or churches. I used to. Now I oversee a Chinese language church. That's a different story. And we also have a Spanish congregation. That's another different story. But I am a product of 3 generations of black pastors. 3 generations. So my understanding of church culture and the Christian culture was shaped in the cauldron of being a black pastor. My grandfather was a black pastor. My father was a black pastor. My brothers, my uncles, my cousins, that's where I come from, out of the black church. So to be and grow and become something different takes a real work of God, because we're shaped by our milieu, our environment. It shapes us. It informs us. It makes us into who we are. Then we become Christian. All bets are off. When you become a Christian, a word that's coined because people had the image of Christ. They were known in their environment as people who were Christ-like, and it wasn't really a compliment when the word was coined. Christianity have never been a comfortable thing, except in our understanding of it, a small segment of the population at this small geographical location, at this small sliver of time. Some of us are comfortable with Christianity, but it have always been something that brought about angst. And human beings aren't designed by God to be under any type of angst. That's the issue. Do me a favor, stand up real quick. Do it like this. All right, that's all I can do. Stay on one leg, stay on one leg. So what's happening now, when you stand on one leg, your whole body is going through what they call allostasis. Allostasis is what goes on when you're trying to get to homeostasis, balance. When you're out of balance, you can sit down. When you're out of balance, okay, your body tries to correct. And it have whether fight or flight, or it have different mechanism within the body that tries to automatically correct, because God made everything to operate within very strict parameters. So when you're dealing with issues of stress or stressors, your body is built and designed to try to correct that, to get you back to equilibrium. That's how God designed us. Maslow, he had his hierarchy, and he speaks about those things we need to be flourishing. Abraham Maslow, you familiar with that? Some of the educators, God bless the educators. Boom, I'm in the school all the time. I love the educators. I'm right there. Prescott Elementary, West Oakland, the Bottoms, LB. But God designed us to be in balance. And when we're out of balance, certain things happen. We know it as autonomic reaction, fight, flight. But what happened is that all of us have stressors that we deal with every day, traffic, work, kids, whatever. And it brings about the body trying to get back into balance, whether it's shooting chemicals into our body to help us, is putting more sugar in, whether it's fight, whatever. The body's always trying to get us back in balance. All of us go through that. But when you happen to be a person of color, you have additional stressors just by the fact of you being black. Now, I'm married to a physician. And she will say that even though she's a physician, and she went to the schools and did the things that she was supposed to go, she didn't go to medical school somewhere on a little island way across the country where there's two of them. She went to accredited school, just like a lot of us, same accreditations. I'm from New York. Married, my woman is from Oakland. Okay, same accredited schools. I went through the Association of Theological Schools accreditation. That's the gold standard for us preachers and teachers in the faith. But still, she's challenged every day just because of her blackness. So that's an additional stress. So sometimes she come home, here she is, her job is to take care of folk, and sometimes she come home and she say, you won't believe what I was asked today. And I say, honey, I believe it. Because I get it all the time. I've had people walk into my church. What seminary did you go to? All the additional stresses that we take, what it does, it brings on a sense in our community and in our churches of what's called allostatic load. And what that means is that when your body is always in a state of hypersensitivity and fight and flight, and your body is always trying to correct from the things that are either perceived or the things that are actual or any type of threat or stressor, your body's always trying to fight. And what it does, it kills you. That's why black people die more than white. That's why black people have more cases of hypertension, more cases of diabetes, more cases of because we don't have just a regular stress. We have 7 kids, 2 of them whom we adopted, and then the cable went out and 5 more came. I'm like, you mean that's all it took to work? I thought something was wrong till the cable went out. I have some of the same issues. Right now, my son, I just got a text. My son is going to be playing basketball. He wants $180 sneakers just to play basketball, and he's not even that good. But we have those regular, normal stuff. Getting across the Bay Bridge, dealing with Bart, dealing with kids in college. Now, I even have my granddaughter, my oldest granddaughter, and she's an I generation. She's Generation Z. She's weird. Hello? Hello? Go in the room, boom, close the door. 11 o'clock at night, you hear somebody creeping around the kitchen. She don't even know how to be part of the family. I'm dealing with that now. It's just like, everything's right here. So if I want to get her, I text her. And she's in the next bedroom. All of the same stuff that you go through, we go through. But with the additional burden of race. Race, brothers and sisters, is not a biblical construct. There's one race, and it's defined into 2 different people, which my mother told me years ago. Either you saved or you ain't. That's the only two biblical, that's the only two people God it talks about in the Bible for a race. You have different ethnicities, you have different people, but it's one race, the human race, and either you're saved, you believe in God, you believe in the Lord Jesus Christ as your personal Savior, or you ain't. And if you ain't, we should be trying to figure out how to get them to believe and to become. That's the only separation, goat or sheep. But we deal with these issues, and I have to say, pastors, because we are in a position of comfort, and we love to be in a position of comfort, and we don't want to be moved out of that position of comfort. Listen, I love to see people who are fatter than me. It just makes me feel good. Oh, look at her. I ain't that bad. Shoot, I'm like, yeah, you know? Shoot. Because we love to think, we love that pride of life, though the Trinitarian, of the Trinity of humanity, what I would call humanistic sin. The lust of the flesh, lust of the eye, yeah, woo. And the pride of life, I'm somebody. And what we do is that we are not biblical people when we think that way. So Jesus, in Matthew 18, he's coming and he's hanging with these disciples who literally were the bottom of the barrel people. I mean, they didn't go to seminary. They ain't masterfully divine like we are. Shoot. I mean, we master's divinity, we call it masterly divine, right? You know it. And then here they are, they're arguing about who's the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. Notice this, the kingdom of heaven. This is the church, y'all. And it says at that time, the disciples came to Jesus saying, who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? And Jesus calling unto himself a child in that particular milieu was not worth much. Once you had your son who can propagate the race, the family, the rest of them was just labor. In the Romans, if you were a girl, they'll put you in the garbage dump. Infanticide was prevalent. So a child was those who had no real dominant position in the culture of that time. And he called the child, and you know, the disciples in their mind said, they were like, children, get the children away from Jesus. Get the children, like the sister said, the educator said, get the children away from Jesus. And he called the child, he said, listen, unless you turn, hear this, because this is a polemic against, all right, what I call odium theologicum, stinky thinking about God. That just smells like it. That's one of them words that you don't even know Latin to figure that one out. Odium theologicum. Stinky thoughts about God. All right, we always try to, you know, I hate the term we talk about anthropomorphic. You know, we put human feelings on God, you know. No. God is theopomorphic. I mean, we have God feelings, but God is just not crazy. He's in balance. So they come and they said, they bring this child. And Jesus takes this child and he said, listen, unless you turn immediately, change the way you think, preacher. Change the way you think, pastor. Change the way you think, Christian. Unless you change the way you think about power and privilege, unless you turn away from that mentality that think you're somebody because you have less melanin, or more coin, or less coin in your pocket, more education, less education, unless you get rid of all that. First of all, you waste your time. You might as well go on out to the club, get high, sleep with everybody, because you ain't going to see the kingdom of heaven. That's some tough stuff here. Jesus said, unless you become elemental, unless you have humility, unless you become like this child that does not have any status at all, You think you're going to heaven? You ain't even going to see heaven. Now you're talking to us. This, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, this is not something that we can just play with. This race and being prejudiced and being mean and cruel and not liking other people and being law and order. Law and order, we all be in hell. Ain't none that's righteous. We better know our Bible. None that's right. I went to your seminary. Y'all told me that at your seminary. Wasn't our seminary, your seminary. Y'all told me there's none that's righteous. No, not one. All of our righteousness is as filthy rags, and I don't want to explain what that is, but that's a feminine napkin. All your righteousness is nothing. He says, unless you turn, you will not even see the kingdom of heaven. But whoever humbles himself, listen, the onus is on us. This is not, I'm not going to give you a pass. All right? And I'm bad too. I'm prejudiced too. Because first of all, it's problematic for me to even want to deal with white folk in church. Because black folk know how to do church. I went to church all my life and didn't see a white folk. But God put me in the denomination that, I had to figure out. And I'm telling you, it was difficult for me. I'm like, let me go back to the black church. We don't need no words on the screen. We all know the songs. Clap right, the whole bit. Ain't got to be dealing with all that. Ain't got to be dealing with questioning. I don't need the resistance. But God says unto us that we have to humble ourselves. I'm in here preaching. I'm supposed to be teaching. Forgive me. But y'all shouldn't have called me. I mean, we have to humble. That means that we have to give up some stuff that we like in order to pick up our cross. Because you definitely ain't getting no crown unless you do. This ain't something that's optive for us. It's not optional. We're Christians. And the problem is, now I want you to go back and read Malachi. I ain't got it. Second chapter of Malachi. Read Malachi. Malachi talks about the fact that God said, we as the people, the priests who should know instructions should be at our mouth, since we're not willing to share it fairly without partiality. We share it the way we want to share it, and then what we do, we bring a shame on God. And God brings a shame to us. Nobody want to hear us. Nobody care nothing about us. And we are not relevant to nothing. Folk don't care nothing about what you got to say. Christian, because of our behavior. Somebody's going to come back and talk about orthopraxy and orthodoxy, but brothers and sisters, you need both. And it says here, what do we do then? Well, first of all, we have to receive those who are less powerful and be careful that we don't become a stumbling block to them by our rotten behavior and bad teaching and chase them away from the church. Do you know 80% of the black Muslim membership was from former Christians? And the problem, the reason why that really crazy theology that somebody's going to come back in a spaceship, it's like Paul and Funkadelic. You know Paul and Funkadelic? Swing low, sweet chariot, and take me right. I remember Paul and Funkadelic? What? That's the theology of the Black Muslim Party, right? An American Black Muslim Party, that, that they were supreme, that they were going, the eschatology was that a spaceship was going to come and take them all away. And these folk were Christians. The reason it happened because the white church was not behaving in a manner that was conducive to encourage people to come to Christ. They were behaving in a manner that pushed people away. And what did they push them to? They pushed them to some type of crazy theological formation that doesn't even make sense. Why do you think our kids, Generation X, Generation Z, why do you think they can care less about what we're saying? Is because they're looking at our lives. How are we going to say we represent God? I met a Generation X, 38 years old, and he said he became a Muslim because he didn't see anything that was touching to him in the Christian faith. So he went to the oldest religion on earth, Islam. And you know my mind working right. I'm like, Islam wasn't it 8,700? You know what I'm saying? The Muslims, the reason ain't no black folk over in them countries because they castrated all their slaves. And I'm thinking, all my mind is running through all the stuff. There's no word for a black person in the Arabic language except slave. You know, all the stuff. Why have he fell into this stuff? And he fell into this stuff because when he looked at Christianity, he didn't see Christ. He didn't see Christ. He seen Jesus. I got to stop making people jump through hurdles to get to Jesus because I want to feel better. I got 29 seconds. And since I'm not a hooper, y'all lucky. You don't know what that means, but I ain't gonna tune it up. But I'm gonna tell you this. The 18th chapter of Matthew says, I will leave the 99 and go after the one. That's God's way of thinking about things. The 18th chapter of Matthew also speaks about the fact that we have to, if you have a fault or something against a brother or sister, you have to go and take to that brother or that sister and say, hey, how can we reconcile this, what we're doing now? If they don't want to reconcile it, take it to another brother or sister. If they don't want to reconcile it, take it to the church. So if we're going to reconcile the racial issue, we're doing the right thing right now. We gotta talk about it. If God told Isaiah, stand up and let's reason or let's argue this thing out. I don't mind arguing with you. We got to be men and women enough to go against our comfort and discuss this stuff. Otherwise, I don't know what heaven you going to. Because he said you ain't going to see it, let alone enter it. It's not optional for us Christians. We have to humble ourselves because he was wounded for our transgression. He was bruised for our iniquity. The chastisement for our peace, our shalom, our well-being was upon him. And by his stripes, we're all, omni, that all were, we're all healed. I'm going to heaven. If I got to hug a white person, I'm going to hug a white person. I'm going to heaven. I'm going to heaven. Old folks just say, hot is too, San Jose is too hot. I mean, hell is too hot. I'm from Oakland. You know? And eternity is too long. And I'm too fat.